album in, what, 10 years? Is that how long it's been?
No, it's about 7 years, isn't it?
7 years.
Third album in 5.
Hello, my name's Matt.
My name's Dominic.
My name's Chris.
And we're from the band Muse, and we're here to talk about our new album, our third album, called Absolution. Hysteria is a kind of fat bass line which has kind of got a groovy, straight beat on it. I think it's like one of the tracks that's got kind of a pretty heavy groove on, like kind of straight down the middle beat. First song on the album is Apocalypse Please.
It's the song that sets the scene, sets the stage for the album. It's the introduction to the album, sets the vibe of the album.
We recorded a lot of kind of percussion on that one.
Yeah, we wanted to make it kind of sound extremely large, and we ended up like building up lots of different layers of percussion. We kind of recorded some drums in some interesting places, like in a swimming pool, which had like a really amazing big live sound to the room, and ended up building kind of big layers to make the first introduction kind of beats and rhythms sound really powerful.
Apocalypse Please, I think that kind of took a direction and maybe a possible, concept of what the album could be about. And the first song, that became, and also it was obvious to us that was going to be the first song on the album. And that song was kind of a bit of a sort of, I'm singing in character a little bit. That's one of the first times I've ever really done that, where I'm singing outside of my own experience, and I'm kind of singing as if from the point of view of a religious fanatic who's wanting their faith to come true, or the apocalyptic visions of their prophecies of their religion to come true. The things all the other songs have in common is the idea of things coming towards their end, whether it be a relationship or your job or your life or the world or your faith. I think all the other songs on the album have something in common with the first song. In fact, it's to do with things coming towards an end. And the first song kind of is like an over-the-top introduction to that idea. Songs like Thoughts of a Dying Atheist, singing about the idea of trying to maintain an atheist belief whilst trying to deal with the idea of life after death at the same time. It's a very difficult thing to do, I think. It's a song that's kind of influenced by the Smiths,
Police,
kind of bit of Police, kind of pretty fast tempo track. We wanted to get this kind of contrast between a kind of pretty punky vibe going on the bass and drums and the guitar, but a really soft vocal. Then there's a song called Blackout, which is probably one of the first songs we started recording. And
this is one of the two tracks on the album where we used a big 18-piece orchestra, which was something we haven't really done before. And it ended up sounding quite amazing when all those people started playing.
That's kind of song trying to imagine what goes through your mind the last few minutes of your life, trying to sort of conjure up some uplifting thoughts about maybe that you enjoyed your life to the full in the time that you did have. I think music we make is kind of, we're trying to make like something quite abstract, even though it has lyrical content. Even the lyrics are trying to kind of form an abstract vibe that kind of gives you the ability to go off away from reality in your mind a little bit. And I think that, well, not all of our songs, but some songs are like that. I think some songs are just fucking rock tracks, do you know what I mean? Just straight down the fucking line.
Yeah, the video for Time Is Running Out was, the set design was inspired by the war room in Stanley Kubrick's film Dr. Strangelove.
And it's kind of taking the piss out of the idea of a secret government who are kind of pulling the strings of everyone around the world, but in reality they're just dancing around with a lot of women. And I think it's a bit of a kind of tongue-in-cheek piece, really.
Again, we spent quite a bit of time like working on like body percussion sounds, and like clapping hands and slapping legs and clicking fingers and scratching heads and things. That's one of the elements that I think turned the song around from where it was initially.
Quite a few different versions of that song as well. We kind of had a sort of simple kind of bass line to start with, and then we always wanted to go for that kind of really simple drum beat over a sort of syncopated bass line kind of thing. It's probably sort of a little bit influenced by, you know, maybe stuff like Stevie Wonder and things like that. So we tried like 4 or 5 different versions of different grooves and things like that. We ended up settling with the one that's obviously on the album.
Rich Costi's involvement was good, you know, he's got really good experience with things like rock music, like bands like Rage Against the Machine, Mars Volta, Audioslave, and also he's worked with people like Philip Glass and Fiona Apple, which are much more ethereal sounding and more unusual. And so I think that he was a good person to work with because we were looking for a mixture of those two sounds, really. And and some of the recording processes we did were not exactly straightforward. We recorded some drums outside.
Yeah, we set up some stuff outside in the studio in Ireland in this big courtyard to try and get some real natural ambience. We focused a lot on, I think, on the drums and bass, and I think the approach we took to that was quite different. I think some of Rich's ideas and techniques kind of made us maybe think about playing in a slightly different way to get maybe a bit more of a harder, punchier, heavy sound than what we've been used to before.
We've maybe sort of gone for like a whole sort of live recording and just kind of settled with what we had, but I think each individual instrument kind of had the same amount of focus, and I know, like we did the drums, and each particular song was sort of concentrated on its own rather than sort of pulling up a drum kit sound for the whole album. We kind of treated each song as differently, and then, you know, when it came to doing the bass was kind of much more sort of honed in on like you would when you're sort of recording a guitar maybe.
As good as it gets.
That was good.
Well, they're one of the few bands that seem like they're actually trying to do something different, pushing into areas that a lot of other bands hadn't pushed into. One of the things I think that I found really interesting is I worked for this composer named Philip Glass, and these guys didn't know it, but they sounded they were using a lot of composition methods that were very similar to his.
I think it would come under this category here. Teaching with strings and epic stuff.
But using them in a rock context.
We decided to get in touch with Storm Thorgerson to work with us on the album cover for Absolution. And I think he's quite an interesting artist. I think he's done some really interesting pieces in the past. We haven't really used much photography on our album sleeves before. It's been more graphic based, so I think we definitely wanted to go down that route. It's kind of a fantasy piece, really. It's open for interpretation. I think, it could be either people coming down to Earth or people leaving the Earth. So it's quite a kind of surreal fantasy piece, really.
We recorded Butterflies and Hurricanes and Blackout both together with a guy called Paul Reeve. Most of the album we made with Rich Costy, but those two songs, Butterflies, Hurricanes and Blackout, we recorded with Paul Reeve in London. And they're the first two songs we recorded on the album, and the reason we did them together is because they both had a large orchestration and they're kind of piano-based type compositions, really. Butterflies and Hurricanes is a real weird experiment. It's like a combination between a kind of, Dom and Chris are kind of playing like it's a full-on heavy prog rock track, and I'm kind of playing a piano concerto over the top somewhere. So it's kind of this weird mix between sort of romantic piano music and more kind of modern rock sounds, really, which I think is, we kind of suggested that on the last album a little bit, but I think this is the first time we've really pulled it off quite well. I mean, when I first started playing the piano, it was more kind of blues music and jazz music, but in recent times I've been quite influenced by people like Liszt, Rachmaninoff, Chopin, these kind of late romantic composers that are writing very emotional, expressive music, and I think that I like that very much. I think we've always been relatively alternative to what's been going on in the mainstream of rock, whether it be Britpop when we started and then kind of new metal and now the kind of sort of garage retro scene. I think we've always maintained a kind of separate sound to those things, and we've always had a lot of freedom in our music, and never been afraid to express things that maybe some people regard as borderline. Stockholm Syndrome, this song was kind of a riff we've been playing for ages.
Yeah, I think when we did Origin Symmetry, most of those songs kind of came about when we were on tour, and I think this is one of the only tracks on the new album that kind of came about in that way. And I know that the actual main riff for that track, we were kind of playing at festivals as some kind of sort of interlude for, in between songs. We were playing that riff, and we kind of thought it'd be good to somehow work that into a song. We were launching a new website like a fair few months before the new album came out, so we thought it was a good idea to put some music out there, and we sort of had this idea of putting one of our new songs on to launch the new website, and we kind of decided to do it as like a kind of download single idea, really, which I think is there's not many bands who've done it before, and it turned out to be really successful, really. A lot of people were into it. We also did this like video that came with it, and I think it's a good thing to use the internet to show that you want to use the internet to communicate with your fans and show them the new music before they get a chance to hear it in the shops and stuff. I think the internet's something that's widely used these days for people to hear about new music before it becomes released, so I think we were just acknowledging that really by releasing a single.
doing now. I think we're not afraid to go into new areas. But what those areas are is difficult to say. I think every album we've done has got a few offshoots into realms that maybe we haven't continued on. Like on the first album, Showbiz, there's like a song called Falling Down, which is quite bluesy, very gospel influenced, and I think that's an area we haven't even been to since then. On the second album, there's songs like Screenager, which are very acoustic and very kind of, I don't know really how to describe it, really, a bit sort of moody, dark, sort of Tom Waits influenced acoustic material. And on Absolution, there's songs like Blackout, which is very kind of classical sounding, and songs like Endlessly, which are more electronic and kind of poppy sounding, really. So I mean, there's loads of areas that we've kind of touched on over the years that we probably could continue on in the future. And I think that's probably what we will do.